Schrager, Sean McVay making the rounds here in Phoenix. He'll join us on set in just a little bit. Lots to talk to with him, getting into Matthew Stafford and more. And Andy Reid is here as well. Of course, he got the great news last week that his quarterback Patrick Mahomes is working through his rehab and has started throwing the ball again. Big Red got the nice Hawaiian shirt going today. Robert Kraft just arriving here, leading the owners through this week's league meetings. Lots of discussions about the league's negotiations with the referee union. Adam Schefter joining us with the latest there. And Raiders owner Mark Davis making the trip this week as his franchise owns the first overall pick in next month's NFL draft. There's going to be a lot of conversation around that. People are climbing Camelback out here. That's not Camelback, though, just in case you're wondering. Who will the Raiders take? All right, we'll get the answer in just 24 days when the draft kicks off in Pittsburgh. Our own Matt Miller released his latest mock draft. Today, Indiana's Fernando Mendoza remains the top projected pick to the Las Vegas Raiders. Mendoza threw an FBS high 41 touchdown passes, just 6 interceptions last season, en route to a Heisman Trophy and national championship. And a lot of people think that's what's going to happen. We're going to see the Raiders take Fernando Mendoza. The good thing is we have the Raiders GM, John Spytek, right here. So as Peter Schrager and I sit here, I mean, maybe we could break some news and just go ahead and solidify it right now. Are you ready to do that? Or you want to wait a little bit here? You're going to have Mendoza come visit next week, it sounds like. So how would you describe just what it's like talking about this #1 overall pick and then how likely it is that it'll be Fernando Mendoza?
No breaking news today. And it's the question everybody wants to know, but I'll just keep saying the same thing. We've got a process. We're going to follow it, and we're going to make the best decision we can for the Raiders.
He does have a pro day this week. Do you plan on attending that pro day in Bloomington, Indiana? And what do you want to see from Fernando if you do go there?
Well, we will be there. I think it's prudent that we go to all the touch points that we can to see all the great players that are out there. And, you know, I think at any pro day, you just want to see guys compete and show up and be there for their teammates and put their best foot forward. And I've been to a lot of great pro days in my career. I can remember a lot of them, the best ones I've ever been a part of. Mostly when you go see these quarterbacks, they do an elite job.
It's a show.
It's a show, and it's scripted, and they know exactly what they're doing and where they're throwing it. And most of the time you walk away being like, that was a pretty good pro day.
I do want to ask, though, because we were at the Combine, and he said it in his media availability. He got a chance to FaceTime with Tom Brady during his 15 minutes with you guys, and he was just geeked out. He was so excited about it. That connection and having the greatest quarterback of all time, having an input in this thing, you have to think that's going to play a role in who the next quarterback for the next 10 years for this team will be.
Well, we would be a fool if we didn't use Tom and his expertise in that level to help evaluate the quarterbacks. And I think that Fernando's love of Tom's game and the fact that he was, that was his favorite player growing up is a nice side note to that too. But we got a big job to do here, and there's going to be a lot required of any quarterback in the NFL, and certainly a lot required of a Raiders quarterback, knowing who one of our owners is.
You're going to get to spend more time with him, right? But in your dealings with Fernando Mendoza and conversations with him, what about him makes you think that he can be a franchise quarterback?
Well, we've got a long way to go there, Laura, but I just love the way he competes, and there's a lot of guys on that Indiana team, and they didn't go 16-0 because Fernando was there. They've got a lot of great players. They're a great team atmosphere in that group. You can feel it when you're around the team. I got a chance to go watch them play a couple times this year, and it's just fun to watch that and witness that and be a part of things like that.
The Crosby deal obviously was a whirlwind, and for us on television for a week, we're dissecting. I can only imagine your vantage point, and yet the day after it comes undone. He's in the facility. He's working. Where do we move forward with Max Crosby now?
All things forward. He's still a Raider. He never wasn't a Raider. And the day he got back, he had a great conversation with Clint. I visited with him for a little bit. We've always had open and honest conversations, Max and myself in particular. And we expect him to get healthy here. He's working his tail off to do that. He'll be ready to roll at the start of training camp, and we expect him to have a lot of good years of football left for us.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I mean, you accumulated some great players in free agency. You made a lot of incredible moves. What have the conversations been like, maybe even with Max, about that? Like, he comes back to a team that looks totally different in a positive way.
Well, we had a plan, and regardless of whether the trade was made or not, we had a lot of cap space. We had a lot of cash that was given to us by the owners to be intelligently aggressive is one of the things that we were talking about in our personnel department and our meetings with our coaches, to target the right kind of players that we could kind of build this thing the right way going forward. Critical positions, youthful guys that have a long runway ahead of them, and like Clint said the other day, we got an elite pass rusher the next day too. So
it's a nice added bonus.
Yeah.
You go through the Combine with the group together, and now this meeting now. What have you learned about Clint Kubiak over the last 40 days that you guys have had all this time together?
Well, we see the game of football pretty similarly. different enough that we can have some constructive and fun conversations. But, he's just a really thoughtful person. He's disciplined in his approach. He knows what he wants, but he's a great partner too. We bounce ideas off each other. He's up not bothering, that's the wrong word, but he's up there talking to our staff all the time. And what do you think about this? And, collectively, we just kind of put our heads together and come up with the best plan for the Raiders. But we're thrilled to have Clint and the coaching staff that he was able to put together too. We're off to a great start.
You going to hit the pool or anything later? Or are you too busy?
I actually have to hit the pool. I lost a game of golf to my kids the other day. I got 2 more on the drop slide left.
Okay, so 2 slide rides.
2 more slide rides. I did one. I paid one of my debts yesterday. I got 2 more of my son
Can
Tom.
we find a time to fit that in amidst all this?
My youngest Tommy will make sure that I fit the time in.
Can we go with you? I could jump in a pool right now. It's a little warm out here.
Yeah, you can take that jacket off, Peter.
We appreciate you. Yeah, Peter's toughing it out. John Spytek joining us here. Can't wait to see what you guys do in the draft next month, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Con.
All right, so whoever lands Fernando Mendoza, whether it's the Raiders or not, will be hoping he follows a similar story to Joe Burrow. In Burrow's final season at LSU in 2019, he led the Tigers to an undefeated season en route to winning the Heisman, the title, and then being taken first overall. You see where I'm going here? Mendoza has already won the Heisman and title and is now hoping to hear his name first in 24 days in Pittsburgh. Spytek not giving it all away there, but either way, they are going to be spending some time certainly with Mendoza in the coming few days and continue to do their work as we welcome in Mina Kimes joining us as well. We'll get to Adam Schefter here in just a little bit. And Mina, when Burrow exploded onto the scene after limited college reps, would Mendoza being the day one starter, would you expect similar results as what we saw from Burrow?
First I'll say I think he will be the first overall pick. I think he should be the first overall pick. I think Fernando Mendoza's accuracy, intelligence, his size, all will translate at the next level. That said, the translation could take a second, and patience is what I would urge for Raiders fans for a couple of reasons, one of which is situation. Love the addition of Ty Linderbaum, love that for the rookie quarterback. The rest of the offensive line does need some work, as well as the wide receiver core. And then schematically, you're bringing in a head coach, Clint Kubiak, who we know from his time in Seattle wants to put the quarterback under center, wants to target the middle of the field. I can count the number of snaps Mendoza had under center in Indiana on one hand. He also targeted the middle of the field at the 37th highest rate amongst FBS quarterbacks. So it's not that he's not capable of doing those things. I think he firmly is. It's just that it might take a second. And I think that's something the Raiders have to figure out this summer, especially as they also consider potentially adding another veteran quarterback.
Yeah, you look at this team and you also look at who's in that room. And Mina just mentioned it, the veteran quarterback. This morning we were at the coaches' breakfast. And Sean McVay's openly saying, hey, Kirk Cousins, come with us. Like, we've got a spot for you here. I think whoever is in that room is so important. You look at Caleb Williams, his first year, it was Tyson Bagent, and it was another young quarterback. And it was like he was kind of swimming in it. Last year they bring Case Keenum in, and they put a nice group around him, and he's a veteran. You need that veteran quarterback. I think that's a very important move to see who's going to be in that quarterback room with Mendoza. But to Mina's point, he will be the first overall pick. I think he should be the first overall pick. But we can't expect Joe Burrow. You can't just put that expectation on there just yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so much of it has to do with who's around him, which I do believe they did a lot to surround him with players that are going to give him success early on. If he is the number 1 overall pick, he's going to be. All right. There's a lot of news happening here. There always is. There's a lot of action when it comes to things being voted on as we bring in Adam Schefter. And Adam, maybe one of the biggest stories right now, or the biggest questions, is who will be officiating these games when the league kicks off in September? What do we need to know?
Laura, there's a real possibility that we're going to be looking at replacement officials in the 2026 season. Talks between the NFL and the NFL Referees Association have broken off. The CBA is scheduled to expire at the end of May. Now, again, that could be posturing here in late March. We'll see if the two sides can figure out some sort of solution. But right now, the sides are far apart. They cannot come to an agreement on the compensation. They cannot come to an agreement on what it would look like. And as long as that continues to be the case, there's the real possibility that we will be looking at replacement officials the way we had back in 2012 when that became a huge controversy Nobody wants that to happen. We'll see if they can figure it out. So far, not encouraging.
I will add, and Adam had an excellent tweet about it, that the NFL did put out a memo and said, hey, let's try to keep that, not be talking about it publicly too much while you're there at the league meetings. Well, then, of course, the head of the refs union, Scott Green, comes out and says, well, let me tell you our message point. You don't want this to be aired out publicly. You'd hope they get in a room and they can figure it out, but this could get a lot uglier than where we are even now.
They won't talk about it publicly, but we will. It's in dire straits right now,
we do,
and it's not going well.
Well, and it's exceptionally important to the games. Like, you don't want anything like this determining outcomes of games. So either way, we'll keep an eye on that. We got a lot more from Adam as well. There's a lot of really interesting stories coming out of these league meetings that you don't want to miss. We also have had a chance to do some exceptional